The code beeped softly, 3 numbers, then 2, then 4, and I heard the heavy clunk of the lock releasing. My legs moved before my mind caught up. I crossed the bedroom in bare feet, the hem of my lace nightgown brushing against my ankles, and stopped beside Lex. He was taller than Chris had been, broader in the shoulders, and in the dim light from the bedside lamp, I could see the muscle in his jaw working. Lex, I reached for his arm. You're scaring me. He flinched at my touch, actually flinched. That was when I knew something was deeply, catastrophically wrong. Lex had never flinched from me, not in 6 years of grief, not when I'd sobbed into his chest on the 1 year anniversary, not when I'd kissed him for the first time last spring, trembling and ashamed, and he'd cupped my face like I was something precious. Come here, he said quietly, and guided me to sit on the edge of the bed. He didn't sit beside me. Instead, he knelt. Lex, who had walked through fire for me without ever asking for thanks, knelt on the floor in front of me with his hands on my knees and his forehead bowed low. Whatever you're about to read, he said, his voice rough, I need you to know that I love you. I have loved you for longer than I should have, longer than was right. My heart was beating too fast. Lex, just tell me. He reached into the safe and pulled out a single sheet of paper, folded twice. The paper was cream-colored, heavy, the kind of stationery Chris had always favored. I recognized it before Lex even handed it to me. I recognized the handwriting, Chris's handwriting. Looping, impatient, the letters slanting hard to the right like they were in a hurry to become words. My hands started shaking. My love, the letter began. I looked up at Lex. His face was wet. I had never seen Lex cry, not at Chris's funeral, not when he'd held me while they lowered the casket, not once in all the years I had known him. But now tears ran down his face without sound, and he didn't wipe them away. Read it, he whispered. I looked back at the paper. My love, if you're reading this, it means I'm gone, and it means Lex kept his promise. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for the pain you're feeling right now, and I'm sorry for the pain this letter will cause you. But I need you to know the truth, and I couldn't tell you while I was alive. I wasn't brave enough, or maybe I was too selfish. I didn't want to see your face while you learned what I did. I made Lex promise he would give you this letter after the wedding. Yes, that wedding. The one I already know about because I asked him before I died to marry you if he could. Let me explain. The accident wasn't an accident. My vision tunneled. The words swam, then sharpened again. The accident wasn't an accident. The brake line on my car, I cut it myself. 3 days before, I'd gone to the doctor for headaches that wouldn't stop. I told you it was stress. It wasn't stress, it was a glioblastoma. Stage 4. Already spreading through my brain like roots through soil. I had 6 months, maybe. 6 months of you watching me waste away. 6 months of treatments that wouldn't work, of hospitals and needles and seeing the light in your eyes go out piece by piece. 6 months of your life that you would never get back, spent in waiting rooms and hospice beds. I couldn't do it. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking there was another way. You're thinking I should have told you. You're thinking I robbed you of those 6 months, that I didn't give you a choice. You're right, I did rob you. And I'm sorry. But I also gave you something. I gave you 6 years. 6 years of life without watching me die. 6 years of grief. Yes, I know that too, and I know what that cost you. But grief is different. Grief lets you heal. Watching someone you love rot from the inside out, that doesn't heal. That changes you. That breaks something permanent. I saw what it did to my mother. I wouldn't let it do the same to you. I asked Lex to be there for you. I didn't ask him to love you. That was his own doing. And I know my best friend well enough to know he fought it with everything he had. But I asked him to wait, to give you time. And if, after enough time had passed, you found your way to each other, then to give you this letter on your wedding night. Because I need you to know that you have my blessing. All of it. Every single blessing I could ever give. But more than that, I need you to know that none of this is your fault. None of it is Lex's fault. The fault, if there is any, is mine. And I will carry that with me wherever I go. I loved you more than I knew how to say. I love you still, wherever I am now. And I love Lex. He was my brother in every way that mattered. And there is no one I trust more with the thing that mattered most to me in this world. You. So tonight, when you finish crying, when you finish being angry at me, and you have every right to be angry, I want you to look at him. Really look. And then I want you to choose. Choose what you want. Choose what makes you happy. Choose to live. Because that was the whole point. Yours always, Chris. The paper trembled in my hands. I read it again. Then a third time. Lex hadn't moved from his knees. His hands still rested on my knees, but his grip had loosened, like he was giving me permission to pull away. I didn't know, he said, his voice barely audible. Not until after. He left the letter for me, too, in an envelope with my name on it, in the same safe. Instructions. When to give it to you. What to say. What not to say. How long? My voice came out strange, hoarse, cracked. How long have you had this? 6 years. I stared at him. I read his letter to me the day after the funeral, Lex continued. I didn't open the safe again until tonight. I kept it locked. I kept his secret. Every day, every time I looked at you, I wanted to tell you. But I promised him, and he was... Lex's voice broke, finally, after 6 years. He was dying. He was dying, and he chose to go the way he wanted, and he asked me to carry this, and I... He stopped, pressed the heels of his hands against his eyes. I should have told you before we got married. I know that. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I was a coward. I thought if I told you, you'd leave. And I couldn't lose you. I couldn't. The room was very quiet. Outside, the harmattan wind had picked up, rustling the dry leaves against the windows. I looked down at Chris's letter again, at his handwriting, the handwriting I had known for 15 years, that had left me love notes on the bathroom mirror, that had written our wedding vows, that had signed the lease on the compound where I had planned to grow old with him. I thought about 6 months of watching him die, of needles and radiation and the slow, creeping loss of the man I loved before his body even stopped breathing. I thought about the alternative, 6 years of grief that had eventually let me heal, let me love again, let me stand in a backyard with string lights and simple vows and feel, for the first time since he died, that I was ready to breathe. I thought about Lex, about the way he had fixed the broken water heater that first winter without Chris, about the way he had sat on my porch for hours without saying anything, just present, about the way he had kissed me last spring, gently, carefully, like he was asking permission for something he had wanted for a very long time. I thought about the compound where I had lived with Chris, and the house where I stood now, with Lex's hands still on my knees and his eyes red-rimmed and waiting. I folded the letter carefully, the way you handle something sacred. Then I set it on the nightstand, beside the small vase of gardenias that Lex had put there before the ceremony. "Come here," I said. He didn't move. He was still on his knees, still waiting for the verdict. I slid off the bed and knelt in front of him, so we were face to face, eye level, the way we had sat 100 times in the kitchen while he drank coffee and I drank tea, and neither of us said the words that were building between us. "You carried this for 6 years," I said. He nodded. 6 years of watching me grieve a death that wasn't an accident. I wanted to tell you. God, I wanted to. I know. I touched his face. His jaw was rough with evening stubble, and he leaned into my palm like a man starved for warmth. "I know you did. I love you," he said. It came out desperate, stripped of all pretense. "I love you, and I have loved you, and I will love you for the rest of my life, no matter what you decide tonight. I need you to know that." I looked at him, really looked, the way Chris's letter had asked me to, and in his face I saw something I hadn't seen before. Not guilt, not fear, not the weight of the secret he had carried. I saw the shape of a man who had been asked by someone he loved to carry something unbearable, who had said yes because the alternative was letting his best friend die alone, who had spent 6 years making sure I survived, not because he wanted something from me, but because Chris had asked him to. And somewhere along the way, that burden had become love. Real love. The kind that shows up and fixes the water heater and sits in silence and waits without ever asking to be rewarded. "I'm angry," I said quietly. "I'm angry at Chris for making that choice. I'm angry that he didn't trust me enough to let me be there. I'm angry that he asked you to carry this alone." Lex flinched again, but I held his face steady. "But I'm not angry at you, and I'm not leaving." He made a sound, something between an exhale and a sob, and his forehead dropped to my shoulder. I wrapped my arms around him, felt the shudder run through his body, felt the 6 years of tension finally begin to loosen. I need time to process this, I said into his hair. I need to sit with it. I need to be angry and sad and whatever else comes. But I don't need to do it alone. I don't want to do it alone. He pulled back just enough to look at me. His face was wrecked. Tears, exhaustion, relief so profound it looked almost painful. Are you sure? He asked. I thought about the answer for a long moment. Then I thought about Chris, about the man who had loved me enough to make a terrible, selfish, heartbreaking decision because he couldn't bear to see me suffer. I thought about whether I would have wanted those 6 months, whether I would have chosen differently. I would never know. That was the thing about choices. Once someone made them for you, you couldn't go back and unmake them. You could only move forward. I'm sure, I said. I'm sure that I love you. I'm sure that I married you today because I wanted to, not because Chris asked you to marry me. I'm sure that whatever I feel about this letter, it doesn't change that. Lex closed his eyes. When he opened them again, something in his expression had shifted. The guilt's still there, but no longer the only thing. There was hope, tentative and fragile, but real. What do you need? He asked. Right now, what do you need? I looked at the letter on the nightstand, at the gardenias, at the man kneeling in front of me who had loved me in silence for 6 years because he made a promise to a dying friend. Right now, I said, I need you to hold me. And tomorrow I need you to tell me everything. Everything you know, everything you felt, everything you couldn't say. And then I need us to figure out how to carry this together. Not you alone, not me alone, together. He reached for me then, not hesitantly, not like he was asking permission, but like he was finally allowing himself to take something he had been offered. His arms wrapped around me, solid and warm, and I pressed my face against his chest and listened to his heartbeat. It was steady, strong, alive. Outside, the harmattan wind continued to blow, carrying the dry season dust across the compound where I had buried my first husband and the house where I would build a life with my second. The grief was still there. It would always be there, but it had changed shape. It had become something I could hold without it destroying me. And in the morning, when I woke in Lex's arms, I would read Chris's letter again. I would cry. I would rage at the unfairness of a man who thought he was being merciful, but was really just afraid. I would mourn the 6 months I never got to have. But I would also look at the man beside me, the one who had kept a promise at great cost to himself, and I would choose him. Not because Chris asked, not because it was the easy thing, because he was home. And that, I thought, was the whole point. Morning came slowly, the way it does in Harmattan, hazy light filtering through dust, the world softened at the edges. I woke before Lex did, his arms still draped across my waist, his breathing deep and even. For a moment, I let myself exist in the simple fact of warmth, the weight of him beside me, the smell of his skin, the quiet. Then the memory of last night slid back in, and the weight in my chest returned. I turned my head carefully. The letter still sat on the nightstand, a cream-colored accusation in the pale light. I reached for it without waking Lex, then eased myself out of bed and padded to the living room. The house was still decorated from the wedding, garlands of eucalyptus on the mantel, the small cake we'd barely touched, a stack of cards from guests. I sat on the couch, drew my knees up, and unfolded Chris's letter again. Reading it a second time was different. The first time, shock had dulled everything. Now I could feel the shape of each sentence, the desperation behind the careful handwriting. I could hear Chris's voice, the way he'd always laughed too loud at his own jokes, the way he'd held my hand when we watched storms roll in across the compound. The accident wasn't an accident. I read the line over and over until it blurred. A floorboard creaked behind me. I looked up to find Lex standing in the hallway, still in the button-down he'd worn for the wedding, the sleeves rolled up, his hair mussed from sleep. He stopped when he saw the letter in my hands. "I'll make tea," he said quietly, and disappeared into the kitchen. I let him. I needed the space to breathe, and he seemed to understand that. He always had. The sound of the kettle, the clink of cups, the small, ordinary rituals that had kept me tethered through the worst of it. When he returned, he set a mug beside me and sat in the armchair across from the couch, leaving distance. I'm not going to break, I said. I know. He wrapped his hands around his own mug, not drinking. But I've spent 6 years learning how to be near you without crowding you. Hard habit to break. I looked at him, really looked, the way I had last night. There were shadows under his eyes, deeper than before. He looked older than he had yesterday morning, as if the confession had stripped away something that had been holding him together. Tell me, I said. Everything. He took a breath, let it out slowly. Chris called me 3 days before he died. He said he needed to see me, and the way he said it, I knew something was wrong. When I got to the compound, he was in the garage. The car was already there, the one that went off the road. Lex's voice caught, but he pushed through. He told me about the diagnosis, showed me the scan results, and then he told me what he was planning to do. I tried to talk him out of it. I screamed at him. I told him he was a coward, that he was going to destroy you, Lex stopped, swallowed. He just sat there and let me say it all. And when I was done, he looked at me and said, I know, but I'm still going to do it, and I need you to be there for her when I'm gone. So you agreed. Not at first. Lex's hands tightened around the mug. I told him I wouldn't lie for him. I told him I wouldn't let him do it, but he was already past talking. He'd made up his mind. And then he asked me to sit with him. Just sit, and I did, because I couldn't let him be alone. The kettle clicked off in the kitchen, the sound too ordinary for the weight of what he was saying. He wrote the letters that night. Lex continued, one for you, one for me. He put them in the safe and told me the code. He made me promise that I wouldn't tell you until you were ready, until enough time had passed, until you'd had a chance to live again. And the wedding, I said. He told you to wait until the wedding. Lex's jaw tightened. He wrote that in my letter. He said, if she finds someone else, give it to her then. If she finds you, give it to her on your wedding night. But don't give it to her before. She'll hate me. Let her hate me when she's strong enough to carry it. I stared at him. He knew. About us, before he died. He suspected. Lex met my eyes. He told me once, years before, that if anything ever happened to him, he'd want me to look after you. And he said he'd want me to be happy too. Both of us. A shadow crossed his face. I thought he was just being morbid. We were young. Nothing was going to happen. And then, he didn't finish. He didn't need to. I set the letter down and picked up my tea, more to have something to hold than because I wanted it. The heat seeped into my palms. I don't know how to feel, I said finally. Part of me understands. Part of me wants to scream at him. Part of me is grateful, and then I hate myself for being grateful, because that means I'm glad he died the way he did, and that feels monstrous. It's not monstrous, Lex said quietly. It's human. Is it? My voice cracked. He was dying. He was scared. He made a choice he thought was protecting me, and instead he left me with 6 years of grief and a secret that makes me question everything I thought I knew about our marriage. And he left you carrying that secret, knowing what it would do to you. Lex was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, I've asked myself 1,000 times if I did the right thing, if keeping his secret was honoring his memory or betraying you. I still don't have an answer. But you married me anyway. I married you because I love you. His voice was steady now, no longer the desperate plea of last night. I married you because I wanted to spend my life with you, and I gave you the letter because I promised I would, but also because you deserved to know. You deserved to know who you were marrying, even if it meant losing you. I wiped my eyes with the back of my hand. You didn't lose me. He exhaled, something released in his shoulders. I'm going to be angry for a while, I said. Not at you, at him, and I'm going to need to talk about it, probably more than you want to. I'll listen. He said it simply, the way he'd said everything over the past 6 years. No flourish, no performance, just presence. I looked at the letter again, then at the man across from me. 2 men, bound together by friendship and a promise, and me in the middle of it, trying to find my footing. I want to go to the compound, I said. Today, I want to see where it happened. I haven't been back since I moved out. Lex nodded slowly. Do you want me to come with you? I thought about it. Part of me wanted to go alone, to stand in that space and feel what I needed to feel without someone watching. But another part of me, the part that had learned over 6 years that isolation wasn't the same as strength, Wanted him there. Yes, I said, but let me drive. A flicker of surprise crossed his face, then something softer. Okay. The compound was 3 hours north, past the last sprawl of the city, and into the scrubland where the red earth cracked under the Harmattan wind. I hadn't driven this road since I'd packed the last of my things, nearly 4 years ago. Lex silent in the passenger seat then, too, letting me leave in my own time. Today, the gate was rusted, the driveway overgrown. I parked in front of the house and sat for a moment, hands on the steering wheel, looking at the place where I had spent 15 years. I'll wait here, Lex said. I shook my head. Come with me. We walked through the gate together. The compound felt smaller than I remembered. The walls I'd painted with Chris, the garden he'd never finished, the mango tree we'd planted when we first married. The tree had grown tall now, its branches bare in the dry season, but I could see the first buds waiting for the rains. The garage was separate from the main house, a low concrete structure with a corrugated roof. I stopped outside it. He did it here, I said. Didn't he? Lex didn't answer, but I didn't need him to. I could picture it. Chris in the dim light, the tools laid out, his hands steady even though his mind was already fracturing with the thing growing inside it. I wondered what he'd thought about in those last moments before the car went off the road. Whether he doubted, whether he'd thought of me. I pressed my palm flat against the garage door. The metal was warm from the sun. I used to imagine him scared, I said, in the accident. I used to imagine him gripping the wheel, knowing he was going to die. I'd lie awake at night thinking about it. I felt Lex beside me, close but not touching, giving me the space to speak. Now I have to imagine him choosing it, and somehow that's worse. I pulled my hand back. But also, I keep thinking about those 6 months, what they would have been like. The hospitals, the treatments, the slow losing of him piece by piece. I've seen what that does to people, to families, and I keep thinking, I don't know if I could have survived that. Not intact, not the way I've survived this. Lex turned to face me. You're stronger than you think. Maybe. I looked up at the house where I'd loved a man who had decided, in the end, that he knew better than I did what I could bear. But strength isn't the point. The point is that he didn't give me a choice. He didn't trust me to make it with him. The Harmattan wind picked up, swirling red dust around our feet. I'm not going to let that be our story, I said finally. Yours and mine. I'm not going to carry secrets that should be shared. I'm not going to make decisions for you because I think I'm protecting you, and I need you to promise me the same. Lex's hand found mine. His palm was rough, calloused from years of work, and his grip was careful, not tentative, but deliberate, like he was making a vow. No more secrets, he said. Whatever comes, we face it together. I looked at our joined hands, then at the garage, then at the mango tree Chris and I had planted when we were young and thought we had forever. I forgive him, I said, and the words came out steadier than I expected. I'm still angry. I'll probably be angry for a long time, but I forgive him. He was terrified. He was dying. He made a terrible choice because he loved me, and he was too scared to let me love him through it. And I can't carry that anger forever. It would eat me alive. Lex squeezed my hand. I turned away from the garage and walked back toward the car, my husband beside me. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. The past would stay where it was, not forgotten, not erased, but no longer the only thing that held me. That night, back in the house with the string light still tangled in the backyard, I lit a candle and set Chris's letter beside it. Lex sat across from me at the small table where we'd eaten our first breakfast as a married couple. I want to write him back, I said. Lex looked up, curious. Not a letter, just something. I need to say my piece, even if he'll never read it. He nodded. Do you want me to leave you alone? I thought about it. Then I pulled a notebook from the drawer, one of the many blank journals I'd bought over the years, always meaning to start one and never finding the words, and opened it to the first page. No, I said. Stay. I wrote for an hour. Lex didn't ask to read what I was writing. He just sat with me, drinking tea, occasionally looking out the window at the Harmattan sky. When I finally set the pen down, my hand was tired, but something in my chest felt lighter. I read the letter aloud to him, my voice low in the quiet room. Chris, I read your letter. I've read it so many times now I could recite it in my sleep. I know what you did. I know why you did it, and I need you to know what I think, even if you'll never hear it. I would have stayed. You know that, don't you? I would have sat with you through every treatment, every hospital room, every long night. I would have held your hand while you lost yourself. I would have loved you through all of it, and I would have survived. Not because I'm strong, but because that's what love does. It survives. It hurts. It breaks. But it survives. You took that from me. You took the choice. And I don't know if I'll ever fully stop being angry about that. But here's what I also know. You were scared. You were young and you were dying and you didn't know how to let me see you fall apart. I understand that. I don't agree with it, but I understand it. And I know that you loved me. I know that you loved Lex. I know that what you wanted more than anything was for us to be okay, for me to live, for him to live too. So here's what I want you to know. We're okay. Not because of what you did, because of who we are. Because Lex spent 6 years being exactly what I needed without asking for anything in return. Because I learned to heal slowly in ways I didn't think I could. Because we found each other. And when we did, it wasn't because you asked him to marry me. It was because we chose each other. Freely. Fully. I forgive you. I don't know if I'll ever fully understand, but I forgive you. And I want you to forgive yourself, wherever you are. You made a terrible choice, but you were a man who was terrified, and you loved as well as you knew how. I'll always love you. That won't change. But I'm going to live now. I'm going to love Lex. I'm going to build a life that honors what you gave me and what you took, both at once. And I'm going to be okay. Yours, still in a different way. When I finished, Lex reached across the table and took my hand. That's beautiful, he said quietly. I folded the notebook closed. It's a start. We sat in silence for a while. Then Lex stood, walked to the safe in the bedroom, and came back with a second envelope, thinner, more worn, the paper soft from being handled. I haven't opened this since the day after the funeral, he said. I've thought about it 1,000 times, but I think I need to read it again, now, with you. He pulled out a single sheet of paper, same stationery, same handwriting. He held it where I could see it, and we read it together. Lex, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and you've kept your promise. Thank you. And I asked of you. I know what I asked of you. I know it's too much. I know I have no right to ask it. But you're the only person in the world I trust to do it. You're my brother. I don't say that lightly. We've been through things most people never have to face, and you've never once let me down. So I'm asking you now, don't let her down. Don't let her drown. I know her. She'll try to do it alone. Don't let her. I know you love her. I saw it before I even admitted it to myself, and I want you to know that I'm not angry. I'm not jealous. I'm grateful. If anyone gets to love her after me, I'm glad it's you. Take care of her. Let her take care of you too. You're both terrible at letting people in, so you're going to have to work at it. But you will. And Lex, forgive me for leaving, for asking this of you, for not being braver. I know I should have stayed. I know I should have let you both be there for me, but I couldn't. I'm sorry. Love you, brother. Live well. For both of us. Chris, when we finished reading, Lex folded the letter carefully and placed it back in the envelope. His hands were steady now, not trembling like last night, but sure. He was wrong about some things, Lex said. He said we're both terrible at letting people in, but you let me in. After everything, you let me in. You earned it, I said. Every day, you earned it. He looked at me for a long moment, and then he did something I'd never seen him do before. He smiled. Not the careful, restrained smile he wore in public, not the gentle expression he'd worn when he was comforting me. Something unguarded, almost boyish. The smile of a man who had been carrying something for too long and was finally setting it down. I smiled back. It felt strange at first, my face still stiff from crying, my eyes still raw, but it was real. It was mine. We're going to be okay, I said. Lex reached across and tucked a strand of hair behind my ear, his fingers lingering against my cheek. I know. Outside, the harmattan wind had died down. The sky was clear now, the stars sharp and bright in the dry season air. The string lights in the backyard swayed gently, casting soft shadows across the grass where we'd said our vows the day before. Simple words, spoken in front of people who loved us, about building a life together. We were building it now, not on a foundation of secrets, but on the truth, messy, painful, complicated as it was. And somehow that felt more solid than anything I'd ever known. Lex stood and offered me his hand. "Come to bed?" I took it. Let him pull me up. Let him lead me through the hallway, past the bedroom where he'd stood trembling in front of the safe, into the quiet dark where we could rest. We had time, we had each other. And we had, finally, the freedom to choose each other without ghosts standing between us. When I closed my eyes that night, I didn't dream of Chris's accident. I dreamed of the mango tree at the compound, green with new leaves, heavy with fruit. I dreamed of Lex's hand in mine, walking towards something I couldn't quite see but knew somehow was good. And when I woke, it was to the first light of morning, Lex's arm around me, and the sound of rain. The rains had come early this year.